Okay, this one is the second of my 2 reviews for today of movies that I actually watched yesterday. You don't care. Why would you care what day I watched them? This one is about the tragedy of Macbeth. I'm not really going to go over a description of what the movie is or the plot like I usually do, because it's a Shakespeare play that if you know it, you know it. If you don't, you know that it's a Shakespeare play, and so I'm not going to go over the plot too much. If you're really even interested in that, you'll go find it yourself. Second, that's okay. So the movie overall, I think the directing was some of the best I've seen this year. It's going to be up there for me for my favorite of the year. Cinematography as well, both those things in tandem are very good, which I'm finding that, I mean, I feel like this is usually the case, but in the last 2 years and this year especially, I'm finding that the ones that really impress me with the direction are the ones that they also have really good cinematography, which you would think would go hand in hand, but over the course of the years, a lot of times it doesn't. I mean, it does. I don't know what I'm saying. Let's be real. Anyway, yeah, I really enjoyed the direction. This year I'm finding there's already at least 2 films. There are a lot of black and white. I haven't hated any of them, which is surprising because I usually have just a natural knack to kind of hate the black and whites because I don't think it's necessary to tell anything. But that's for another time for me to really go in depth with that. But this year, every black and white film I've at least enjoyed and appreciated that they were in black and white, where it's like I've seen the reason why, and usually I don't. But this one really, I don't think it would have been half as good as it was had it not been in black and white, because it almost made it, I don't know what it was, I still can't even put my finger on it, but it's like, that really made the movie for me. It brought it to another level. Just the cinematography and the direction alone almost depended on the black and white, which I loved. Sorry, there's like a fly or something going on here if you see it. But that was arguably my favorite part of the whole thing. But I also think Denzel, going to the performances, obviously the plot's great, the acting's great, but the performances, Frances McDormand I mean, again, it's a Shakespeare, so it's a play that's originally written in 5 acts and very long, so they had to really choose what they're going to keep and what they weren't. Excuse me. But with what they gave Frances McDormand, which I think was a little less than I maybe thought, but still obviously more than enough, she did so well. And this is so much different from what I've seen her in before, because obviously I've never seen her in anything Shakespeare-based or classical at all. And she's so good, very good, which didn't surprise me at all. It's Frances McDormand. She was very good. Denzel Washington I liked, but I thought I was going to love him, and I didn't. I think that for me specifically, me personally, he didn't have there should almost, I think Macbeth is supposed to kind of be this, he's driven insane by this whole thing because he's power hungry at the end of the day, but it's like there's something evil in him and there's a disconnect. And it's like with Denzel Washington, you feel a natural connection, where it's like, even if he is terrible, you kind of end up rooting for him, and I don't think that's the case with Macbeth. You shouldn't be rooting for Macbeth. And I think Denzel Washington's almost got a little bit too much softness to him, where he played the character beautifully, but it's like, it was more of this showing how good Denzel Washington is. It's like, I don't believe this was a character that was good for him at all, just for how I see him and the kind of things I see him in, and he still pulled it off, and he's that good. I still bought it. Obviously, there's aspects that I think he kills, obviously, but I think there's just something, honestly, I kept saying in the eyes. I was like, with Macbeth and playing it on screen, it's like, there's got to be something specific in the eyes that you can see the character, where like, with McDormand, you can almost see through her eyes, like in her monologues and those private moments that they do, like, that she's crazy, that she's power hungry, and that she'll do anything. And it's like, with Macbeth, you kind of see almost too much of the softness, not just the guilt that Macbeth has, but this softness behind her, where it's like, you for some reason look at it and you go, oh, it's Denzel Washington, I trust that. Like, those are nice, good guy eyes. It sounds so stupid, but it's, hopefully somebody else watches this and knows what I mean. I didn't get the coldness almost that I think you should get from Macbeth, where there's almost just a natural disconnect with him and reality, and you don't get that from Washington with a movie that's really so dependent on the small things and the eyes. Really, that's what I'm saying, is like these close-up eyes. I didn't get that, and so that took away from me with him a bit. To that being said, it's still award-worthy for sure. Just, I expected it to almost end up being one of my favorites of the year. I don't know if he is specifically. Going to just the general cast was very good, super well cast. God, a lot of bad teeth in this movie. There's so many close-ups and you can see people's, I mean, I'm one to talk, but like, man, did it give me promise as an actor where I was like, okay, you don't need like perfect teeth to make it, because there were some people with, whew, this is a random thing that I'm noticing, but it's just something I noticed. But they're all very good performances, super well cast. Man, I forget her name. The woman that plays the witch, I would give her an Oscar just off the first scene alone. Holy, that may be one of my favorite moments or performances of the entire year. I'm still letting it settle in, but her body, she's so physically in it. It's like at one point her arms like back here and her legs like wrapped around it, and she's like crouched over and grabbing these other feet, and you have to see it to not be weirded out by what I just did, but she encapsulates just the creepiness and the eeriness of this movie. And it's like every time you hear her voice, even, it's like you get chills down your spine, which is exactly what they want. Along with that, it's not even the scoring, it's like these sounds where it's like, if there's like a drip of water or a footstep, it's almost like a bass drum behind it that gives it, again, this eerie feel, almost like you're watching a horror film. And I love it. And it gives you this feel, too, of like, it's Macbeth, so it's written for the stage, all Shakespeare, and it's like, Joel Coen didn't shy away from that. He made you feel like you were somehow still watching a stage representation of this, which is how you were properly supposed to be watching Shakespeare for it to kind of hit you correctly. And he did that. He leaned into it. Even with the deaths, it was like they kind of played like it was a stage with like very clearly fake blood and like not showing a lot of the gore, because with Shakespeare, obviously back in the day, all the deaths took place off stage because they didn't like back in that day, like you weren't doing death on stage. It was vulgar, it was grotesque, and they weren't using fake blood. And he really leaned into that. And I really enjoyed that. I think some people might go, oh, kind of corny, whatever. I really enjoyed it. It added to the experience for me as somebody who's like trained classically on the stage. I saw what they were trying to do, and I really appreciated it. And it added to it for me. It didn't take anything away. Overall, I think it's such a complete film. I think they absolutely hit the mark of what they were trying to do. I think it's just a matter of, do you like Shakespeare or do you not? If you do, you're going to absolutely love this movie because they do everything right. If you don't, you're going to walk out in the first 3 minutes, which I saw it in theaters. At least two people did walk out after the first like 5 minutes when they realized, I don't know what they're saying. You know what I mean? So I think maybe to get more tickets, they could have sold it a bit more like, this is all going to be spoken in Shakespeare. I don't know what they could have done. Maybe that's not what they care about, but it's my favorite Apple one of the year for sure. I know everybody's on Coda. Coda missed me. I didn't love it. I think it was the equivalent of like a rom-com for me. It didn't seem like a rom-com, but it was like that level of movie making for me where I was like, it just kind of missed me. There were certain parts that I thought were tacky, other parts that I thought were good, nothing I thought was great. Other than the fact that I loved that they showed representation for the deaf community. That was great. But I think they could have done more with it otherwise. And I'm not going to just say a movie's great because it represents a certain people. It just isn't like, that doesn't make something a great movie. But this isn't about Coda. This is about Tragedy of Macbeth. I think they did a really good job. I give it a 4 out of 5 stars. There were moments where, because of Shakespeare, it drags a bit. So if you're not loving Shakespeare, you're probably gonna get bored at certain points. But even if you like it, it'll be worth getting through those moments, just to even learn something. And I also love one thing, that the cohesiveness of having Americans and like people from Scotland and British, all just very inclusive. You didn't have to be of any certain country or nationality or region to play this, and I love that. Because as somebody who's American, I was like, it feels like you can't really do Shakespeare past a certain point, because like you don't have the British accent, you can't sound good enough, you don't sound believable, and this kind of shows you that that's not necessarily the case. But that's it. My favorite part, that's going to be hard, between the directing, the cinematography, and honestly, this woman that played the witch. I really wish I knew her name, and because I didn't, I'm not going to say she's my favorite part because I don't want to disrespect her. But I'm going to say it's the direction. I think the direction was absolutely fantastic. And I think this is like the third movie that I said the direction is my favorite part, and that is very weird for me to say because I'm not at all a director. But I'm starting to get an appreciation for it. And this is a year that I felt, as far as like just movies overall, has been a little weaker, but we'll get in that with like awards talk. So maybe that's why I'm leaning more into just the direction, because that's something that even in a not so great film can be really good. 4 out of 5 stars. Favorite part was the direction, but there were a lot of things to like about this movie, and it'd be easy to love if it weren't Shakespeare. And that's coming from a guy who likes and understands Shakespeare. It is a bit boring, so if you're not going to the stage, it's going to drag a bit on screen. But they hit the mark, they did what they wanted to do. I think everything was done perfectly and exactly how it should have been done. And it's coming out on the 14th of January on Apple TV if you have it. It's also A24, which I know is like the art house god and everybody loves it, including myself. I think they make nothing but the highest quality of movies. So that combination, very good and accessible. So if you have Apple TV, give it a watch, put it on in the background. It's very much worth your time, especially as an actor and if somebody's going on stage or anything. It's just a very good one to know, very good one to watch, and you can learn a lot. So that is The Tragedy of Macbeth, directed and written, I believe. I mean, written by Shakespeare, but written for the screen by Joel Coen, one of the Coen brothers. And yes, that is it. I'm excited to see other stuff on his own with his brother and with his brother, but I know he's going off on a branch on his own, so I want to see if he does other stuff. And please, please, please watch this. It will be an awards player, at least for acting, and I hope directing and cinematography. See you next time.